No one is illegal on stolen land. I feel like we just need to keep fighting and speaking up and protesting, and our voices really do matter and the people matter.
I want to say I'm up here as a granddaughter of an immigrant. I wouldn't be here. I'm a product of bravery, and I think those people deserve to be celebrated.
I'm gonna say, eyes out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans, and we are Americans.
I hope everybody's inspired to join together as a community of artists and speak out against what's going on. And I'm gonna leave this and say, ICE.
I'm wearing Thom Browne couture tonight. It's a really meaningful look for me because I'm obviously a proud daughter of immigrants, and our story of survival is around clothing manufacturing, and Thom Browne is one of the first brands that my grandpa ever fulfilled orders for. So it's a huge full circle. Thank you.
This is also for those who came to this country in search of better opportunity, to be a part of a nation that promised freedom for all and equal opportunity to everyone willing to work for it.
What's up, y'all? I am back. Thank you for watching my last video. I think I'm up to like 77 subscribers, something like that, which is way more than I thought. So apparently people want to hear me run my mouth. So back at it again. This time we will be more on topic of what I want this channel to be about in terms of media literacy. But I realize living here, I'm going to end up talking more about socio-political stuff and what's going on with ICE and immigration and all that. Not necessarily more than I want to, but all of this shit feeds into each other, and we'll get into why. But I cannot be a Black queer man who is in the arts, talking about the arts, while living in Minneapolis with everything going on. Like, I've realized that I'm just gonna have to keep talking about this shit. And in a way, yeah, this is great because I can really loop into how all of this, again, like I said, is just a feedback loop of shenanigans. But I do want to start with like a lot of things that I've been thinking about, especially since the Grammys were this past week, and that's largely what this video will be about, is the Grammys and just my thoughts on it, what that has to do with everything going on in the political climate, what AI has to do with all of that, and da-da-da-da. So let's get into it. Y'all, future me, hey, I did want to hop in and say that this video, it does kind of get a little tangent-y, but I mean, if you're used to talking to me, you know how I can be. But I promise you that things that I say in this video will definitely make sense in future videos as I explore this topic of AI and pop culture and all of that jazz more intertwined. So if it seems like I'm going from the Grammys to AI and it's just kind of like a jump scare, I guess, just stick with it. I promise you. Okay, bye. I've been seeing a lot of praise for the Ice Out pins at the Grammys, and I just want to be honest, like, that shit did not move me whatsoever. Not because I don't understand the intention, not that it wasn't needed, but because intention without material just stops short. As I said in my last video, when you're Black in Minnesota right now, you're watching everything that's going on. You saw what happened to Renee Good. You saw what happened with Alex Pretty. You're seeing children be taken away. You're seeing children be gassed. Ice Out pins, just as symbolism, doesn't feel like enough. It doesn't feel proportionate to the harm, and it definitely doesn't feel like justice. To me. Keep that in mind, because again, I know how you bitches like to tussle. A pin is easy. Stick it on, just like I have this mic on right here. But funding, legal defense, housing, mutual aid, court costs, immigration support, that is definitely a lot harder. And I need white celebrities in general, but particularly white celebrities, especially, to understand that your privilege is not just visibility, it's access. It's money, it's protection, it's leverage. If you can wear a pin on the red carpet, you can also write checks quietly, you can fund organizers without making it a branding thing, and you can also offer resources without applause. And I think that we should be able to say that without being called cynical or a hater or whatever the case may be. If me, being lower middle class, when I have some extra money, if I can quietly donate to all of these mutual aid organizations, making sure that people have the right resources and connections that they need, there is no reason why people with 10 times my wealth can't do the same thing. And that's why, like, the Grammys this year felt so split. And I have been watching the Grammys since I was a child. Again, like, I'm a pop culture nerd, so I'm gonna watch an award show. Like, that's just me. Even if I don't particularly care for the nominees or anything, I'm gonna watch an award show. Simple as that. It's just something that I have been doing since I was in like the 4th grade. So that ain't gonna stop now at my big age of 38. I will be 38 next month. But I will say, on one hand, like, this year's Grammys, it did feel like a genuine celebration of Black art. A lot of Black queer folks won. Like, it was very emotional, and there was a lot of affirming moments that I'm gonna get into. But on the other hand, it was still the Grammys. It's still an institution. It's still a machine that benefits from Black culture while limiting how that culture gets recognized. And like with nuance, you know, that's where nuance lives in general. Both things were happening at once. But let's start with the joy. I've been listening to Duran Bernard since his Alcohol Harmony days on YouTube. And one of the moments that really stayed with me wasn't even on the main broadcast, but it was when he won Best Progressive R&B Album.
Shit! Happy Black History Month for the rest of my life. Listen, I want to remind everyone that we are all we got, and we know who I'm referring to. So please give yourself some grace and extend your kindness to your neighbor who needs it, okay? I mean, with that being said, to the Recording Academy, thank you for the Grammy. To my parents, thank you for loving and supporting me in ways that will last me 10,000 lifetimes. Behind the Access, D-Sing Records, The Nucleus, Emerald Media, Create Music Group, my team, my village, my cousins, the visionaries who believed in me enough to help guide me forward. Okay, never straight. My family and friends, oh my God, thank you for being the wind beneath my wings at last. All of my personalities are weeping with joy right now. Thank you to the Academy, to my nominees. My mom and dad are here. Wait, and one last thing. One last thing. Whew. To all the independent artists out there, and to every butch queen who was made to feel like you were too much, I'm the proof that you needed and the sign you've been waiting for. Be yourself. And speaking of yourself, I want to thank myself, because this was some hard work, y'all, 20 plus years. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
And the reason it mattered wasn't just the win, but it was like how he used the moment in general. Like, he didn't posture, he didn't over-explain, he didn't censor himself, he didn't try to tone anything down. He was the Duran that we all know and love if you love him. And he didn't try and translate his joy for comfort, which, that's what I love. And to quote, he said, "To butch queens, to independent artists, to people who have been told they were too much, I am the proof that you needed." And that is how you recognize community. Like, that is how you plant your flag in the ground and like, this is my lineage. Like, I know exactly who I am, what the fuck I'm standing on, and I'm not smoothing myself out for anybody in this room. And that's the type of resistance that we as Black queer people need. Like, not something that's overly loud, not something that's just like, again, a brand, just something that really rings true to him. And the fact that he had his parents there with him, and seeing Black parents love on their Black queer child, seeing a Black father love on his Black queer child, like, that shit is more revolutionary to me than a lot of the shit that these motherfuckers out here are doing. Like, real talk. And that's what I want to see more of when it comes to like Black joy, Black liberation, and all of that. So shout out to Duran. Shout out to Kehlani as well for winning for Folded. I think she won 2 Grammys. She also gave her Ice Out speech.
And I'm gonna leave this and say, fuck ICE.
But again, Kehlani is a person who has been doing the work since before this Grammy and has been getting backlash for it. So these are Black queer artists who are standing on business and who are like, hey, I accept this, I love this, I appreciate this, but we still got work to do. And the fact that they were saying that on the stage, given everything that they've already done in the past with these issues, like, that to me is more meaningful than what a lot of these white artists were saying. But I digress. But more to that point, we can also talk about Bad Bunny.
Puerto Rico, créeme cuando te digo que somos mucho más grandes que 100 por 35. Y no existe nada que no podamos lograr. Gracias a Dios, gracias a la academia, gracias a todas las personas que han creído en mí durante toda mi carrera, a todas las personas que trabajaron en este álbum. Gracias, mami, por parirme en Puerto Rico. Te amo. I want to dedicate this award to all the people that had to leave their homeland, their country, to follow their dreams. Para todas las personas que han perdido un ser querido y aún así han tenido que seguir hacia adelante y continuar con mucha fuerza. Este premio es para ustedes. Gracias por tanto amor. Los quiero. A todos los latinos en el mundo entero y todos los artistas que estuvieron antes y que merecieron estar en esta tarima recogiendo este premio. Muchas gracias.
When it comes to nuances and when it comes to like why certain things stuck with me and some things didn't, like, it's all about layering and like who it comes from. So Bad Bunny's moment worked for me, again, because it was layered. Like, he made history, first Spanish language album, winning album of the year. And then he spoke deliberately but briefly about ICE in a way that didn't center himself as a savior. It didn't center himself like he was above it all. He wanted to just remind the room that immigrants are not abstractions. Like, they're not talking points, they're not villains. They are people with families, communities that make art. And that's what I mean by nuance, because Bad Bunny understands something that a lot of celebrities don't. When you're a minority with a platform, your words land differently. They carry a lived context and not just an opinion. And that's why, like, him, Kehlani, who else? Duran's, like, that's why all of these speeches worked for me. And the difference between Duran, Bad Bunny, and Kehlani and the pen-based activism is that neither of them treated the moment like branding. They didn't flatten grief into aesthetics. They didn't turn politics into accessories. They didn't ask to be applauded for their awareness. They spoke from within the contradiction. And that's important because we are living in an era where everything gets optimized for optics. And speaking of that, this is where I want to get into like what this channel is about. And you're probably like, okay, where's he going with this? And here we go. So buckle up. So by now, this video, you'll know this video is not just about an award show. And it's about something that I realized while watching the Grammys. And it's like, it wasn't the annoyance that, you know, white people were doing what they do, because they also did this at the Golden Globes, and I'm sure they'll be doing it at the Oscars in a couple of weeks. They'll probably be doing it at the Super Bowl this weekend that Bad Bunny's performing at. But it wasn't about all of that shit. It was just about control and about who gets to be seen as fully human, who gets translated, softened, or managed for mass consumption. Because the Grammys aren't just an award show anymore at this point. It acts as sort of like a sorting mechanism, like a visibility filter. And what I mean by that is they show us what kinds of expressions are safe, which ones are profitable, and which ones need to be contained in specific boxes. And like, this is something that I've known, especially having a master's in marketing and knowing, you know, what data collection is all about and how to control the narrative, so to speak. But that's what made me think like, oh, okay, maybe all of these things that I do want to talk about aren't as separate as I want them to be. Because if you think about it, every Grammys moment gets turned into data, like who trended, whose clips went viral, whose speeches get replayed, which artists get flattened into aesthetic moments instead of full narratives. And none of that shit's accidental, because that's the same logic that streaming platforms use. That's the same logic that social media platforms use. That's the same logic that a lot of these AI models are trained on. So when people ask like, why do I want to talk about AI music of all things? And I'm like, it's because the Grammys is already part of that training set, if you really think about it. And take a moment like Duran's speech, raw, black, queer, specific, but that gets clipped, categorized, summarized, reduced to tone. And moments like Bad Bunny's, when in the statement don't just get like the full historic framing, it gets modeled, not as context, but as like content. And all of that, when in relation to like AI, is like Pitchfork put it like plainly when talking about AI and music. And I'm going to post that up so you can read it. And it says, the question is, well, they said, the question is no longer whether AI will be part of music, but who controls it and who benefits from it. And that question applies just as much to award shows as it does to algorithms, in my opinion, because when culture becomes data, expression becomes surveillance, right? But not in a sci-fi way, in that like quiet way, I guess, where it's sneaky, where a lot of people don't realize what's happening, which is what's been going on for the last like 15 years, right? AI systems don't ask, why did this moment matter? Who was it for? What history is it responding to? They ask, did people engage? Did it fit a category? Can it be replicated? And that's how the nuance of things get lost. And that's why the difference between Duran, Bad Bunny, and the performative celebrity activism matters so much, because these systems don't understand intention. It just understands patterns, and they know what clickbait. They know how to clickbait, basically. They know what's going to get the average person to click and either have a reaction, good or bad, right? So several of the like articles and things that I've been reading when it comes to AI systems and how they're being trained on already like biased musical and cultural data from all of this that I've been talking about over the years, it just really had me sit and think about what all that means. And, you know, Black artists are still disproportionately tagged as R&B, regardless of sound. Emotional subtlety and sadness are rewarded more often than range or excess. Certain acceptable versions of Blackness and queerness get amplified. So when we ask, what happens when the future of music is trained on what the algorithm already rewarded, that's not theoretical, because it's already happening. Like, I'm hoping y'all are following along, because I'm not changing the subject or anything. I'm just following the logic of where this all goes, because the same systems that decide which Grammy moments matter, which artists are framed as serious, which expression feels safe, are the same systems being used to basically decide the next generation of media. And I want people to understand that AI isn't like breaking away from the industry or changing the industry. It's actually the industry remembering itself pretty perfectly. So when I say that, like, the question isn't like, will AI replace artists? It's more like, what parts of humanity are we teaching machines to ignore? And like, once you see that and once you start recognizing what's happening, AI music feels like a left turn, and it feels forced and inevitable at that point. And again, when I'm talking about AI, because I know a part of you are like maybe lost and like, Aries, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't want to be theoretical. I don't want to be on some like futuristic oracle shit, like, and I'm not even trying to be dramatic. I'm literally talking because the industry has already made the decision of like what we're doing. And when I say the industry, I'm not just talking about the entertainment industry. I'm talking about the empire as a whole at this point. And I'm using the Grammys because they aren't just reflecting culture anymore. They're feeding the systems that are about to scale it. And like I said, these is already part of the trading set. And with all of this, people are constantly arguing about whether AI should be here. Like, we can talk about all the harm that it's doing to the environment and all of that. And all of that is true. But the people with the money, the catalogs and infrastructure have already pivoted and made a decision for us. Like, you have artists like producers like Timbaland openly backing AI-generated artists, framing them as innovation, efficiency, and the next evolution. Meanwhile, Black artists are still getting the shaft and still getting overlooked when it comes to being recognized in these institutions as a whole, right? You have major labels like Universal Music Group and Warner Group not banning AI outright, but negotiating how to license, partner with, and profit from it. So not asking, should this exist, but asking, how do we own it? And that distinction definitely matters, because when institutions stop debating ethics and start drafting frameworks and shit, the future's already scheduled at that point, right? And if you don't believe me, like, just take a look at country music. And because this is just not about pop or R&B, like, if you look at country music, country labels and producers have been some of the fastest to experiment with AI songwriting tools, AI demo generation, and synthetic vocal pipelines too. And you gotta ask yourself, like, why is that? And you would think that a genre that was stolen from Black artists that white people seem fiercely protective of, to the point where they change a whole damn category at the Grammys in order to shut out other Black artists because a Black woman won Album of the Year and Best Country Album at last year's 2025 Grammys.
You mad, bro? You mad, bro?
You would think that they would be more, what's the word? I don't know, I guess gatekeeping when it comes to the use of AI, but instead, they're embracing it. And again, country music, you know, is built on recognizable archetypes, familiar emotional tones and lanes, repetition that feels comforting and not disruptive, right? Which makes it feel easy to model, especially in an industry that rewards sameness. Like, that's where AI thrives, is because if you mess with AI, it's only as good as you put into it, I guess. So if you're giving it some simple shit, and it's gonna give you some simple shit back. Again, when it comes to making music, most people just want to hear some shit that sounds good. And that's an area that's very concerning to me in particular, as someone who DJs, as someone who has started producing music in the last few years and who has started writing music, taking their poetry and turning it into music. It's like, damn, where does that leave Black artists like me, Black queer artists like me, if the whole world seems to be embracing, you know, these generated models? And I can get into all of this in another video, but again, as I was saying, like, this is being fast-tracked and it's already been decided for us. More proof in that is that BMI. If you're not familiar with BMI, they are probably, I think they're one of the 3 largest music publishing corporations that been in existence forever. But with them, instead of them drawing a hard ethical line, BMI has now revised like how authorship, registration, and royalties might work in an AI-assisted future, which may sound neutral until you realize what that means. And that just means that AI isn't being treated as this existential threat, but it's being treated as a workflow adjustment. And once something becomes a workflow, that's when it stops being questioned. So to go back to my earlier question, like, will AI replace artists? Like, that's not the question that we should be asking, because that is framing it too clean, too simple, in my opinion. The real question is, what parts of humanity, again, are we teaching machines to ignore? Because machines don't get to decide what matters, and when they inherit priorities, especially when you're feeding more biased information, more biased ideas, more lazy ideas into a system that's basically continuously training itself. So the priorities being fed into these systems are efficiency over context, palatability over truth, and repetition over risk. And like, once you start seeing those patterns, like, none of this should be feeling shocking. It should be feeling sudden. It should be feeling forced and inevitable, like I said before, not because technology demands it, but because the industry did. And this is where I want to zoom out a bit, like a little further, because when we talk about AI music, when we talk about algorithms, and we talk about the future of media, I think people jump too quickly to fear. I'm not scared of AI. What I am scared of is what we're training it on, because algorithms don't create culture and they just reward basic ass patterns. AI doesn't imagine futures, it repeats what's already performed well. So when joy gets flattened, when grief gets aestheticized, when Black expression gets sorted into palatable lanes, none of that shit's by accident, because it's all data, right? All biased data at that. And if the only versions of us that get rewarded are calm, quiet, sad, and digestible, then what kind of future are we building? And as someone who has studied AI for the last 5 years, I've even gotten grants to throw some events where I have created some AI, Gen AI images and hired local designers to recreate them by hand. I see the pros and cons of what Gen AI can do. As I said earlier, like me messing around with song production, I have taken some of my instrumentals and vocal demos that I've done and put them through, apps like Suno, just to see what it would give. And the shit's scary. It's scary how good it can be when in the hands of someone who is talented. Like, you can say whatever you want about Timbaland, but he is a talented individual. And so what he is doing on some level is cool, but it's not when you have Black artists who are constantly getting undervalued, underpaid, underappreciated, and not when the environment is getting fucked up in the process, right? And what concerns me most is that everything that's happening right now felt like a preview of, it feels like a preview of the next 10 years. Like, especially with the Grammys, like, yeah, we as people of color, queer people of color, we're getting more visibility, we're getting more in touch with our queerness, we're more diverse faces popping up, but that also means more branding, more algorithmic sameness, more pressure to be legible instead of honest. And I think the real question with that is, are we moving toward liberation or toward better designed cages? And I'm already ranting way too long for what I wanted this to be. But this is largely why I created Firebomb Files, and like why going forward I want to get more in depth with all of these things. I don't want this to seem like I'm trying to like cancel artists. I'm not trying to scold audiences. I'm not trying to pretend that I have all the answers. I'm not trying to persuade you to be more conscious about anything that you have no interest in, but I do want you to think about how everything feeds into each other, right? I want you to be able to watch one of my videos and be like, that's something that I have not thought about. And this may not be the best example of that, but going forward, like, hopefully we can build that relationship, you as the viewer, me as the person presenting this information, where you can ask more questions or ask me to go more in depth with a lot of what I will be talking about, or even things that I've talked about in this, because I know I just brushed past a lot of shit, and I apologize for that, but you're still here watching 25 minutes later. So again, I want this to be something where we can slow things down, to name what feels off, and to remind us that media literacy isn't about just what's spotting what's fake. It's about understanding how systems decide what feels normal, acceptable, and valuable. And if the future of media is being shaped right now, I want us to be awake for it, honestly. Again, I'm not persuading people to completely shun AI or completely embrace AI. I think that it has a lot of pros and cons when it comes to like accessibility, when it comes to being included in workflows and all of that. But there's so much to be said about how it's used and how it's incorporated and like what surveillance has to do with all of that and pop culture and all of this other shit. So going forward, I want to ask for this next video, who is AI actually for? And I want you to really think about that, because when the same tools that help disabled people communicate also drain water, reshape labor, and replicate bias, then how do we decide what progress really means? Accessibility, extraction, and ethics collide as we trace how we can both expand human possibility and quietly consume the world that sustains it. Yeah, right? So that is everything. Again, if you have questions or you want to see me get more in depth with something that I've talked here, please let me know, because I am flying by the seat of my pants. Special shout out to everyone that has watched this last video, everyone that has subscribed, everyone that follows me on Instagram and everywhere else on social media under Aries Firebomb. And a very special shout out to my editor and creative partner, David, who had to sit through all of this and figure out how to make me look and sound good. So with that said, I will talk to y'all later. Peace.